From my understanding, is that my dad did a lot of study on that, and he wondered the same thing. How did they maintain such a nutritious diet with corned beans and squash? And he saw was that they built everything into a mound, and then those mounds were, weighed below, underneath the ground. And so when they planted the three sisters together, the women that worked they worked it every day. And he said that he recalls an early explorer that came up to an Iroquois village and saw all these bumps on the ground. These were all the mounds. And what they were able to maintain was this massive food that kept going. And yearnings of corn. It is documented in these pages of these explorers that they always encountered Iroquois people and there was always white corn around. It's because they kept that. So when you think about how massive that garden would have been, the undertaking would have been so much. But again, that's something that we don't think about, that they maintained it. And yet we can't do a 4x4 plot. It's time. We're too consumed by time. They had the time. And it's always the people that were dedicated to it, that's all they were dedicated to. And so there was so much that went into it. What was used and what wasn't used was reproduced back in there. And then it goes back to our hunting. What do we don't use from the animal? Put it in the ground. When we fish, what fish there was left, put it in the ground. Everything was about recycling. So that earth was so rich with nutrients that it was fulfilled, so they kept it going. But it was the work and dedication and the energy that kept in that, knowing that how many people they had to feed. But then once that part was done, the next stage of people come in, the responsibility of husking that corn or taking care of that squash or looking at those beans and providing it and preserving it. And then another undertaking, who was going to cook all that? It wasn't all the same people doing the same job because they delegated all of that out. So when, again, we go back to the way that the houses were structured, how many people in there, everybody had a responsibility. So maybe your job was just planting. Maybe his job is to harvest it. And maybe mine was to cook. But it was all about taking care of each other. We all reap the benefits from that. And can we go back to that? Yeah, we can. As a community, if there was a community garden, make it so where this people look after the upkeeping. The people look after the harvesting. They look after how they're going to distribute it. That's how we did these responsibilities. So everybody had a chance to work on how that's supposed to go. It's not that hard to imagine. It's just implementing it, because people take credit for one thing. Well, I did that. It's not we did this. It's even the play in our words. When we learn something, it's about all of us. Not I learned this. We all have to put that in there. So even way back then, they had to understand that this is how we learned. This is how we grew. This is how we did everything. So it's not too hard to imagine that it can be done. Just that we need to dehumanize ourselves to be humble, that it can be done.